Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode If You Could Hi to Cola podcast. My name's Daniel. This is my brother Clive.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new year, a new exciting year, Daniel. Look, to me, this is what it's all about. Remember many years ago when I came to you and I said, I think we should do a podcast. My suggestion was on the Bible.
Yeah, I knew you would be excited for this. I guess, last year's kind of a bit more my strength. This year is definitely your strength. And I'm really looking forward to learning more. And the Old Testament's a little bit scary for me. But as I come to know it a little bit more, hopefully, I can be as much as a student this year as well.
Yeah, I did enjoy last year. You taught me a lot about church history. And, the more you learn about church history, the more you appreciate what we've had to go through to get to where we are. So last year was a lot of fun.
Clive, I've got a quote to start us with. One of the blessings of the atonement is that we can receive of the Savior's succoring powers. Isaiah spoke repeatedly of the Lord's healing, calming influence. He testified that the Savior was a strength to the needy in his distress, a refuge from the storm, a shadow from the heat. So I'm looking forward to learning about the Savior this year, and probably a reminder, Clive, when we talked to Keith Erickson about church history and how to come follow me in 2025, we're now how to come follow me in 2026. Like Christ was the main character in the Doctrine and Covenants, Christ is also the main character in the Old Testament. And sometimes that can get a little bit washed away when perhaps our understanding isn't as good as it will be in 12 months' time.
Yeah, well, exactly. Christ is the main character through everything that we do. And so it just reflects so well that all through the years, because, every single time we talk about the Old Testament, New Testament, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, they're all massive years in between. And Christ is always central to that, and he's central to everything that we do. So always very important to remember that.
Clive, I wanted to start off. I'll start off with something that I think is really relevant. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that here? I'm looking at the church's handbooks and callings.
Yep.
On the church's website, it's pretty easy to navigate. If you go to libraries, Gospel Library, handbooks and callings, general handbook. And so in meetings within the church, generally they open with handbook training. So somehow get familiar with them. But we're going to go all the way down to section 38, then section 38.8, and then section 38.8.40. And this is scriptures. So if we click here, you can see that I've been highlighting some. And the church has recently updated what Bible text you can use. I guess typically or traditionally, the only Bible or the only scriptures we can go with is the ones produced by the church. They're now saying, actually, there's easier ones that you can interpret that can help you. So there's some words that they've updated here. So in 38.8.40.1, editions of translations of the Holy Bible. The church identifies editions, not addition, editions of the Bible that align well with the Lord's doctrine in the Book of Mormon and modern Revelation. Down here it says, in some languages, which this I did not know, in some languages, the church publishes its own edition of the Bible. So I guess I only know about the Western church, and that is we use the King James Version. Whereas the church is saying here, actually, in loads of places around the world, there is no church version, and they use the one that they can get. So that's an education to me. Here it says, generally, members should use a preferred or church-published edition of the Bible in church classes and meetings. Two points here. Generally, so not you have to only use the King James Version or other versions that we pre-authorize. Just says generally. And we should use them in church meetings. But why? Because it helps maintain clarity in discussion and consistent understanding of doctrine. But other Bible translations may be used also. The church is saying you can look at all the Bible translations. You can read them all. In fact, you are welcome to do such. Some individuals may benefit from translations that are doctrinally clear and easier to understand. And then it actually gives you a list. So if you click here, Holy Bible List, it'll open up on the right-hand side here. It'll open up on the right-hand side a whole part about the Holy Bible. And if you scroll down to English, these are all the languages. If you speak, I'm going to say that says Bemba, but also I've got no idea. Or Bengali, I know that says Bengali. Then these are the editions that you can use. But if you go down to English, there's a whole suite of Bibles that you can use. And the one I like the most is the New International Reader's Version. So how do you do that? Well, you can download the app on your phone, or you can go to this website here, which is Bible.com. And in Bible.com, you can open up the verse that you're reading from. You open up this drop down. If you're listening to this on a podcast, I'm at Bible.com. And the first thing when you open it, it brings you up to John 1. And then you click another filter and you can bring up any Bible known to man. Like there is just so many different Bibles you can go on. But the NIRV is the New International Reader's Version, which the church says you can use. So, Clive, I wanted to do a very, very quick exercise to help people compare the King James Version with the NIRV version. So we're going to go to, Clive, if you can go to Isaiah 55, and then we're going to go down to verses 8 to 9.
Okay.
All
Do you want
right.
me to
So
read
can
my
you?
version? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you've got it that quickly, you are a quick finder.
Yes, I'm in the King James version of the Bible.
You're using the King James. Okay, so you're going to read the King James, then I'm going to read the New International Version, which is approved by the church. Go.
Okay. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts.
Here is the new version. My thoughts are not like your thoughts, and your ways are not like my ways, announces the Lord. The heavens are higher than the earth, and my ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts are higher than your thoughts. This is a different way of just reading it. My thoughts are not like your thoughts, he says, and your ways are not like my ways, announces the Lord. So a tad bit simpler to read. The other one, Clive, the one more example, if we can go to Ecclesiastes, please. Chapter 1, verse 15. I will find that as well on this version.
Yep.
Ecclesiastes 1. You got it immediately. So, New International Reader's Version. I had good. Okay, and we're going to go down to verse 15. Can you please read 15 in the King James Version?
Okay. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered.
Okay. Here is the King James. Here is the new version, the Reader's Version. People can't straighten things that are crooked. They can't count things that don't exist. Can you read yours again, please?
Yep. That which is crooked cannot be made straight. That which is wanting cannot be numbered.
So people can't straighten things that are crooked. They can't count things that don't exist. What I like about this is that the church are saying, hey guys, the King James Version can be really, really complicated. And to make it easier for you, there are versions that exist in the world that we are okay with, and you can refer to them to help make your studying of the Bible easier. So what I've done is I've downloaded this app, this Bible.com app, which we have no affiliation with, I must say. It is just the best one that I found, and looking at church websites is referred to a little bit. So this website here, it will help you go, okay, well, I don't really know what that means. So I'm going to read the New International Reader's Version, and I'm going to see if that helps me make sense of this verse. That Ecclesiastes one, the Isaiah one is pretty okay. It makes it a little bit better in the Reader's Version, but the Ecclesiastes one makes it way more simple. So, but both readers get the same outcome. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out this year that's going to help me come follow me better in 2026. Get an additional resource. If it doesn't make sense, go to the app, make sense of the app, make sense of the New International Reader's Version, and then keep going. Don't let these really complicated verses bog me down.
I think the church is okay with it because if you really look at the history of where the Bible came from, right? So it wasn't found like the Book of Mormon was found. Like Moses wrote on some parchment the visions that he saw, Joshua, David, all these things are written down. But over time, people have got these things, they've rewritten them, or they've written them in a way where they think they're correcting them. Like Daniel and I did an experiment a little while ago, which you can see on our social medias there, where I did a Google Translate of a Dutch Bible and Daniel wrote it down. And now if he were to go back, he would try and find where the commas would go, just like Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery, eventually it went back and punctuation was put in. That's not dissimilar to what happened with the Bible. They look at it and they go, okay, well, first of all, we got to translate it to English, and they didn't have a Urim and Thummim, so they translated the way they found it to be true. Then they'd put the punctuation in spots where they think the punctuation wasn't. This wasn't one-time thing. This was over centuries. This happened many, many times, copied and changed and fixed until around the 1600s, where the Catholic, or the 1500s, where the Catholic Church got their hand on it, and they completely changed things to be the way they wanted it to be. And then eventually we're using now the King James Version, but we don't have to use that, like Daniel said, because the amounts that it's been changed and added upon. And that's the beauty with the Book of Mormon, is because the Bible is a book that we can read and has a lot of interesting features in it. But the Book of Mormon is this perfect book with no changes. And so if we read the Bible and then read the Book of Mormon for clarification, it works out so well. And so I guess that's why the church is okay with us using all these different types of versions, because as long as we have the Spirit with us, we can really know what it is trying to say.
Yeah, I like that.
I guess the other thing with the Bible as well to remember as we go through this year is it's not a linear story like the Book of Mormon is. The last 2 years we've gone Book of Mormon, here's a linear story, here's Nephi and his descendants and how it all came about. Then we've just finished Doctrine and Covenants. Okay, Joseph Smith saw a vision, and here's how he laid out the church. The Bible isn't like that. The Bible is a bunch of different stories. Some of them are stories that have been told, that have been written down later. Some of them are first-hand accounts. Some of them are copied from other stories. So as we go through this year, there's going to be random things that pop up that just appear. Like there'll be people that just appear. So I think the thing to remember that is if you do need clarification on those people that appear, just send us a message in whatever form you can, and we will, help you understand who that person is.
Clive, I read, studying a little bit more over the last couple of weeks, I read a quote from Bruce R. McConkie, who, whether he was asked or whether he brought it up at BYU or something, it was, can we believe that everything that's said in the Bible actually happened? Was Jonah really in the belly of a whale? Did these things actually happen, or are they figurative? And he said, unless, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the point is still the same, unless through modern scripture and modern prophets, or the Lord has given revelation, everything else can be viewed skeptically. So I like what you're saying. There's so many things been written down. And as a church, we don't say the Bible, the Old Testament specifically, the Old Testament from start to finish is a historical narrative. We say it's full of stories. Our article of faith, you'll know it more than me. I think I'm going to say it's number 8, the Bible to be the word translated as far as it is correctly. I think that's right.
I mean, super butchered, but the point is there.
Well, I know you would know it more than me. So this is the point that was asked of Bruce R. McConkie. And yeah, he said that we don't think that every single thing, unless through modern prophets it's been revealed or been referred to, these things may or may not have actually have happened. We're not saying that this is a thing.
Exactly. And there's so much more out there. Like we talked about the Apocrypha in 2025 about how Joseph asked, should we translate the Apocrypha? And the Lord said that there's inspired writings in there, but there's also some that aren't, which is the same with the Bible. In fact, you can open up to Songs of Solomon. Songs of Solomon, in the footnotes, it says, Joseph Smith says, this is not inspired writings. So, there is bits and pieces there. There's different Bibles, like you said, but there's also even more Bibles than that. There's the Ethiopian Bible, which is my favorite Bible. This is one that never got affected by outside of Ethiopian church. And so it has 88 books where the Bible that we have now is 66 books. So there's so many more books that, are they inspired? Are they not inspired? Well, there's interesting stuff in there that we can discuss. And so that's a really interesting thing about the different varieties of Bible that we have. I just want to go through real quick some things that we might come across as we read the Bible this year, Daniel.
Yeah.
Now, if you've noticed as you're reading through the Bible, you'll come across different versions of Lord or God. Now, if the Lord is all in capitals, this is referring to Yahweh or Jehovah. It's all in capitals, Jehovah, meaning, Jehovah. Well, we see Jehovah as Jesus Christ. Many, many other places in the world see Jehovah as God, but we know through inspiration that Jehovah is Jesus Christ. So when it's Lord, all in capitals, it's referring to Jehovah or Jesus Christ. When it refers to God, it's referring to Elohim or Elo, depending on what the specifics is, but it's always referring to our Father when it's referring to God. Now, there is another Lord in there where it's Lord with a capital L and then lowercase O-R-D. Generally, and not 100%, because like we've talked about, there is a different inspirations out there, but generally this is talking about Adoniah. Now, Adoniah means master, but not like a master like my boss, more like a great master.
Like a great rabbi.
So sometimes, Daniel, you can read Lord God. Lord God would refer to Adoniah, as in master, and then God as in, well, so here's the other thing, where it varies, and we'll go through this next year to help you understand, but just for your references now. This year, sorry. Lord, so it's Lord with a capital L, lowercase O-R-D, meaning Adoniah, meaning master, and then God.
I always say Adonai.
Adonai.
Is it Adonai?
I don't know. I mean, I looked it up. 2 different websites said 2 different things.
Okay.
But then God, all in capitals, would refer to Jehovah. Because if they were to write it the way we say it, it would say Lord, Lord, which doesn't really make sense in English. So they would write Lord God. And then the other thing to remember is when we see a word in italics, that is a word that is translated closest to the way that we would say it in English. For example, right, there's a Spanish word that's, and I'll 100% get this exactly right for all the Spanish speakers out there, it's sobremesa. Now, This is a Spanish word, and in English, it's interpreted as sitting at a table chatting. But we don't have a single English word for that, but there's a Spanish word for it. And so that's an example of a word that they would put in italics, trying to find the closest word in English, even though it might be a full sentence to explain one word. So when you see italics, that's what it means. So just a few things there to remember as we go on, but we'll definitely bring it up as we go through this year.
I've got another tidbit that is helping me, Clive, and that is the structural sentences or the structural way the books are put together. And I've been reading a number of books about the Old Testament to help me this year. One by Susan Black, another one by Josh Sears. Josh Sears is a professor at BYU, and these books have been educating me, but also having me ask questions about, well, what is it that I'm trying to get out of the book? And I've come across that there are 5 different ways that the words are written. There's narrative, law, wisdom, poetry, and record keeping in the book. And poetry is probably the most interesting because a big percentage of the book is poetry, not as in roses are red, violets are blue type situation, but just a more artistic license in explaining something that is that has happened. And I want to give a very quick example of that. We might go to two separate sections each to explain this poetry, Clive. I'm going to get you to find Exodus 14, 21, and 22. And I'm going to go to Psalms. I'm going to go to Psalms 114. Just making sure I got this right on my notes here, my scribble. 114, verses 3 and verses 4. These are both about the exact same thing. I'll read mine first. Psalms 114, verses 3 and verses 4. The sea saw it and fled. Jordan was driven back. The mountains skipped like rams, and the little hills like lambs. Also, what on earth does that even mean? Who knows? If you read your version, Clive.
And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back to the strongest east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon dry ground, and the water were a wall upon them on their right hand and on their left.
So, Clive, your version is very simply put. This is a historical narrative explaining how, or the activity of parting the Red Sea. That's correct, right?
That is
very
correct.
simple. Wall of water on your left, wall of water on your right. In Psalms, this is explaining the same thing. The mountains skipped like little. The sea saw it and fled. Jordan was driven back. The mountains skipped like rams, and the little hills like lambs. This is a poetic version of the exact same event that you just read. And so the point that I was making here is that some things are really, really hard to read through, and in most likely they're a poetry where they're using an artistic license to explain a story. And I'm sure back then this made a lot of sense, but now you read this and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Actually, for the sake of this, I've just thought of, what does this look like? What does this actually look like in the New International Reader's Version? I didn't check that. I'm going to check that right now. It said, instead of the sea saw it and fled, Jordan was driven back, it says, the Red Sea saw him and parted. The river Jordan stopped flowing.
That makes more sense.
Makes far more sense. But your version in Exodus is the story, is the narrative, where this version in Psalms is a poetic license to tell the same story.
Yeah.
So this happens consistently through the book as well. And I guess my purpose in looking at this way, Clive, because I know you understand all of this much more than me, is how can I and a lot of people out there who are going through the Old Testament, how can we make sense of this? Well, it's to be conscious that there's poetry like this one. It's to be conscious that there's easier words to read from. It's to be conscious who is Lord God, who is Elohim, who is Jehovah. And I think that is a great way that we can get so much more out of the Bible this year.
I think one thing as well, it's going to be very, I want to say difficult, but I also want to say not more pressure, but I think teachers this year have to really focus on how do I explain this? Because, we read the Book of Mormon all through the year, all the time. The Doctrine and Covenants, we always learn about church history. With the Bible, it's not second nature to Latter-day Saints, I don't think. I think a lot of people do, but not really as much as the Book of Mormon. So I think teachers have a bit more of a challenge this year to say, okay, how can I make this make sense? And I think that's something we're probably going to struggle with this year as well, which hopefully we can get out there properly.
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap it up there. I mean, we actually don't really get into the Bible completely till like March anyway, right? We got January is a bit of Genesis with some Abraham and Moses, Exodus and Moses. There's a real mix of Pearl of Great Price as well for the first couple of months. So really looking forward to getting into it this year and learning a lot and taking a fair bit out of the Old Testament and Yeah, what a great year it's going to be. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of You Could Hide to Cola podcast. Catch us on Facebook, catch us on Instagram and YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We update everything there. It's going to be a wonderful year, and we look forward to your company.